Hey everybody, it's Rosemary Jane again, and I'm sitting down with another teacher for one of our walkthrough, talk-through teacher talks as part of my new Tech Talk Tidbit Series. Whew, that was a mouthful. All right, I'm sitting down today with one of our district reading specialists, and I'm going to have her introduce herself to you now.
Hi guys, my name is Lindsay Lenhof. I am a 4 to 6 reading specialist at Carson. This is my first year as a reading specialist, my 11th year in Cincinnati Public Schools.
All right, and Lindsay is one of the first to earn her Cincinnati Public Schools Distinguished Educator Level 1. And so she and I have been working together on some other PD opportunities, and I had the pleasure of getting a walkthrough with her and her course. So Lindsay's going to take it away and show you some things that she's been doing as a CPS Distinguished Educator.
Okay, thank you. So, I have been using me and my reading teachers at Carson, both 4, 5, and 6, have been reading or using Schoology very frequently, starting at the beginning of the school year. So I'm just going to quickly go through some of the things that we have done in my classroom. The first thing is that because I'm a reading specialist, I actually had asked my teachers to make me an admin of their classes so that I could just connect to their courses. It would just be in their language arts course, the students' course, so they didn't have to have a separate one, which can sometimes be confusing for most people, adults as well. So if you notice, I am linked right here to my 4th grade classes and my 6th grade. I'm going to show you an example of what we did with my 6th grade class because it involved a lot more co-teaching. And especially during remote learning, we did a lot with our Schoology accounts. So if I go into my first language arts class, if you notice the platform, both the regular teacher and me, classroom teacher and me, can post things. So the Google Meet was posted by the regular classroom teacher. So were the communications and also the mini lesson. The things I added to this were basically the interventions that I had been doing prior to the remote learning. So prior to the remote learning, we were doing problem of the days. I was pushing in for the first 30 minutes, and me and the teacher were co-teaching together. So we would use these problem of the days to address, typically they were AIR-like questions. They mimicked the AIR test or the OST test. And these were highly tested standards that we knew were going to be on this test. And we wanted to make sure the kids had them in their head. So we did this prior to the remote learning. And then after the remote learning went into effect, me and the teacher sat down and decided that this was probably the best thing for the kids. They were used to it. They were comfortable with it. It was something that they had done on a daily basis, so we didn't want to change up too much with the stress of it becoming more remote than ever. So let me give you an example of what one of the things I had uploaded. If you notice on the problem of the days, I did them by week. I also put the due date, which typically with the remote learning, I understood that the students didn't necessarily have computer access every day. So I had their due dates all be for the weekend, Saturday at midnight, so that if they only had computer access every other day, they could potentially do 2 in one day. I always suggested that they never wait until the last minute, and they never did. Never had anyone do that. So also in there, I kept reiterating that they had 2 attempts, which they knew that prior to going to remote learning, we had always given them 2 attempts, and basically added a little bit more, which you'll see with the review videos. So if I click in here, this is an example of from the week of the 13th. If you notice, there was a problem of the day for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And I'll just show you one of them. This right here, problem of the day, all this week dealt with one highly tested standard. It was over informational reading, in particular science, and it was over RI 6.4, which is vocab, which is a very highly tested OST standard. So we knew that the students needed it. So each day the student would be given a passage and a question that went along with that passage. This one was a multiple choice, again, mimicking the AIR-like test. They were familiar with this because we had started doing these in January in preparation for OST. The second one was another air-like question. This, though, was a highlighting question. So they had to read the paragraph and highlight the sentence that helped them with the meaning of the word. Again, they were familiar with this type of question because we had done these starting back in January. So these questions were nothing new. They were very comfortable with them. Also, the nice thing about these was we were able to progress monitor the students. So if you notice, we would be able to see, okay, who got a 4 out of 4, who got a 0 out of 4, and then provide feedback. Most of my day was spent looking at the problem of the day for that day, and then sending messages to the kids and providing that feedback immediately, like I would have done in the classroom. Basically saying, number 1 looks great, but you might want to take a look at number 2. Again, they were used to that before remote learning. We would always go over their questions. They'd have 1 attempt, and then we'd go over their questions. And kind of to add a layer.
Sorry, we're getting a little bit of interference. Can you tell a little bit about an adjustment you made after COVID-19?
Yeah, so before COVID, I was able, when they did their 1 attempt, me and the classroom teacher were able to look at the progress, look at their grade real quick, and basically decide, okay, there is some misunderstanding. Let's go over these questions. And we'd be able to go over the questions with the students in real life. Well, when COVID hit, we didn't have that. So to facilitate them not having that face-to-face, I was able to create YouTube videos that kind of went over or gave additional support to their problem of the days. I did one on that went over Monday and Tuesdays, and then I did one later in the week that went over Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So they were still getting that feedback that they were used to in the classroom, but this time it was in like a video YouTube form. And it seemed like a lot of the kids really did appreciate that because you could tell that they weren't necessarily understanding something at first, but once they viewed the video, they were like, oh yeah, I was supposed to pick a sentence. I wasn't supposed to pick a word. I was supposed to pick a sentence, or I was supposed to pick a phrase. So definitely was able to get some of those misconceptions and little things that we initially would do the feedback in the classroom, but because of COVID and the remote learning situation, I thought maybe the YouTube would help with that a little bit more and provide more support for those kids that needed it.
So this has been a really great story to share of how you took some practices you already had in place, you added additional supports, you were continuing your progress monitoring, and I wish we had more time, but there was even a piece about how this connected with families at home.
Yeah.
But as we're sort of wrapping up this conversation, and I think the connection to the family at home was that they parents were reaching out to you about the child's progress, advocating for either more time or another attempt. And that was keeping that parent connection, not just to the classroom teacher, but you as a reading specialist, right?
Yeah,
So,
I was getting feedback a lot from parents about their students' progress because they could see their progress.
So you were able to take what you'd done in the face-to-face classroom and enhance that and continue your progress monitoring. This is such an awesome example to share with people. And I know you're also co-facilitating the reading specialist PD for CPS on Wednesday. So I know that they'll have lots of questions for you about the rest of the content. I would say though that as we end, the big how, right? So in a couple other videos I've shared, we went into the weeds of how, and like we showed how something was created. But the piece that I heard that answers the how here, the how this was accomplished was through collaboration. You and the co-teacher teaming up and co-administering this course. You having resources available to families and they can reach out to you, and you connecting with students, establishing a connection with something they already had in place, but enhancing that further as we had to move to remote learning. So I really just want to thank you for sharing your time, your expertise, and a little bit of your story with us today. Yeah, as I said, this has motivated and inspired me so much. So I know people across the district will celebrate as they hear your story as well. So thanks for your time, and stay tuned for more of our teacher talks as a new feature of my Tech Talk Tidbits. Thanks again, Lindsay, and
Thank
we'll
you.
see you online. Bye.